Hi everyone, my name's Josh Johnson and I'll be your instructor for Elementary Statistics, Math 117, the Section 1. We meet right away in the mornings, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8 a.m. So bring plenty of coffee. We're going to be using this textbook, which is the 5th edition of Basic Practice of Statistics. The book is a little bit older, which means you can find it really cheaply on Amazon for about $2 or $3. So I'm going to just take a moment to kind of explain why we're studying statistics, as well as why we're going to do it in this kind of flipped classroom model. So first of all, the flipped model that we'll be using is going to feature me doing a lot of our lectures really basically through YouTube. That will allow you to break it up into bite-sized chunks, watch the ones that you need, when you need it, be able to go back, pause, rewind, all of those things. So in our lectures, I'll kind of go through examples from the textbook itself, as well as other information that you'll need as we go forward. Those are going to be assigned after the class periods for you to kind of view before you come back to class. And that way we can spend our class period just actually going through and doing the actual work of statistics. A lot of people don't fully comprehend or really appreciate the fact that math is, number one, a skill. It's something that you have to practice, and you have to practice a lot. But at the same time, I don't want to fill your heads with all sorts of knowledge and numbers and show you how to do things in class and then send you off on your own only to have you struggle there. So we're going to kind of reverse that. Should make the homework a little bit lighter for you, since we'll be doing it in class. We'll do it together collaboratively. You'll have access to me as well as your peers. So it should be a really good way for us to do that. So typically when we come to class, after you've watched the lecture that will be for that class, you'll be able to ask questions about the lecture right away, some of the examples that were shown, and then we'll be able to spend time digging into some of the problems and exercises that are there to help us practice doing some of this, and then also the ones that are assigned for you to turn in or for me to look over. Those things we can do in class together as well. We will have quizzes and tests from time to time, usually every 3 chapters. There's a unit test on that. But we'll talk more about that as we get to it. So I'm just going to introduce you just to the overall reason why we study statistics. And to do that, we'll take a look at my notebook here, where I'll be doing a lot of the problems for you, and you'll have to bear with my handwriting as I continue to practice and improve with this. But all right, so first of all, like I mentioned, we are actually going to be using the 5th edition of this text, which means you're going to be able to find it for really, I've seen it for as little as $2.68 on Amazon. So act fast so you can get a quick, cheap copy of that. But we're going to be doing statistics, and really when we're taking a look at that, it's important for us to understand, why we're doing that. Why are we studying statistics? So really, statistics is going to be known as the science of data. Typically, when we talk about science, we talk a lot about the scientific method, where you are going to really have some sort of hypothesis. You're going to test or experiment. You're going to collect the data, and then you are going to draw your conclusions from it. And that's really what we do with statistics. In fact, a lot of you are probably taking this course because it's a requirement in your major. If your major has anything to do with research whatsoever, like a psychology student, being able to do sound research, meaning that you're able to examine data, you're able to collect data appropriately and ethically, all of those things. That's really one of the reasons why we study statistics. But that brings us to really one of the key points. What is data? Most people think of data simply as a number. But that's not true. If I gave you a number like this, 2.3, what is that? That means nothing just as a number by itself until you put it within some context. So you have to have a number with context in order to have data. Start putting context in here. Is 2.3 your GPA? Is 2.3 your blood alcohol level? Is 2.3 the number of kids in the average family in your family? I don't know how you get 0.3, but there's always a decimal point on there because you're averaging. But really, is 2.3 the number of miles per gallon that your truck gets? You start putting these things in, and they mean completely different things. Obviously, a blood alcohol level of 2.3 means you're probably dead. I'm not a doctor, so don't quote me on that, but you're not doing so well. 2.3 miles per gallon, not good. 2.3 GPA, well, you're above average. But that's actually misleading too. A lot of times we talk about things like, C is the average score. That's what it's supposed to be. But because of the way data gets collected, C may not be the average score in a set of students. So we're going to talk all about those things when we take a look at this. So a couple things to remember when we're working through these things is where the data comes from is important. Where does the data come from? The reason is a lot of people use the term garbage in, garbage out. I give you bad data, you're going to make bad conclusions. But sometimes data is garbage in simply because we haven't thought a lot about it. So in order for us to really understand data and understand things such as like a lurking variable, we'll talk a lot about this idea that not everything is simply as plain as it seems. If I ask a random group of 100 people, what's your favorite soft drink, and 37% of them say Pepsi, why did 37% say Pepsi? Was it a truly random sample, or was there another variable that was affecting it? Things like, where are they from? If you're from Atlanta, you're probably not going to answer Pepsi because it's a Coke area. Or if you're from Texas, you just say Coke. So it could be your age. Maybe Pepsi wasn't around when you were a kid, and so that affects your decision on that. Now, that doesn't mean that these things cause this to be a bad survey, but it is something that affects perhaps, you being male or female. That's going to affect what that 37% is. So we need to really start to understand what can make data change as we seek to evaluate data. So in this course, we are going to be taking a look at really breaking this up into 3 parts. Really about the first 7 chapters, we're going to work with data analysis. So we are going to be looking at data, we're going to be graphing it, charting it, trying to make decisions and conclusions and inferences based on that data. In chapters 8 and 9, we are going to work with data production. So we are going to actually talk about how can you collect data and make it useful. And then in the final chapters, really like 10 through 14, we are going to work with the idea of making an inference, especially one that is based on the stats that we have. So the final thing that I'll leave you with, especially as we kind of get ready for all of this, is whenever we are working on something, we want to have basically problem-solving skills. That's going to be huge when we're working in any field, especially in math. So when we're doing that, first of all, you gotta know what the problem is. So you first need to be able to state the problem. What is it that we're actually looking for? And once you know what the problem is, then you can make a plan for the work you're going to do to solve it. A lot of people attack problems without even knowing what they are. They don't know what the question is. Once you do that, you're going to then solve. This is usually where we do things like make our graphs and our calculations in order to show all of the work and kind of give everything ready to make a decision. And then the last thing is we draw that conclusion. That's typically the answer. I really hesitate to say that there isn't always an answer, especially when we're talking about statistics. People will study and say, airplanes are far safer than driving. There's a statistical probability of you getting in an accident in an airplane is far less, but that doesn't mean that airplanes are necessarily safe. They're safer than driving. So we can't make solid conclusions. I mean, everything is kind of a judgment when it comes down to it, but we're going to try and make judgments based on the data that we have at hand. So that is what we're going to be taking a look at this year. So once again, you'll see a lot of these videos. I'll try to keep them short. This one's a little bit longer than I would like to, but I would like to keep them for sure less than 10 minutes. My goal is usually around 6 minutes. I'll break them up into either examples or topics that we're going through. I'll put them together in a YouTube playlist, and I'll make those available to you in our course management software. So God's blessings as you seek to become a data scientist as we study elementary statistics.